Hey everybody, this is David, Carolina Luthier, and here doing part 2 on the restoration of this 1943 D18. Last video we made a new bridge for this guitar and installed it because the old one had been shaved down. And today we're going to get started on the fun part, the bulk of the work on this guitar, which is the neck reset. So we're going to be pulling this neck off, recutting the heel, and gluing it back down. If you're familiar at all with vintage guitars, you're familiar with the concept of neck reset. Just about any guitar at some point is going to need it. Most Martins, if they're more than 50 years old, if they ain't had it done, they're going to need it done. Basically what happens is, the wood on the guitar changes over time. They're wood, it's a natural material. It changes with moisture and temperature and stuff. And with tension pulling everything up, string tension pulling everything up, as they change over time, the action almost always gets higher and not lower. And you can trim the saddle down to compensate for that to a point, but eventually you reach a point where there's no saddle sticking out. And at that point, you need a neck reset to kind of start over. And a lot of times what would be done, people would try to put that off by shaving the bridge down thinner so they can have a little more saddle sticking out, which is what happened to this one. That's why I had to end up putting a new bridge on it. It had been shaved down to almost nothing. As you can see, this is our old bridge. That's pretty dang spindly. But that's really not the right way to do it anyways, because it does hurt the sound of it and it hurts the value of them to shave the bridge down like that. So we went back with I made a new bridge, the proper height. I got a whole video on that. It's the first one in this series. You can go back and watch it. But so now we're going to have to reset the neck so we can have our string height, have our action right with this new bridge, the height that it's supposed to be. So we're going to have to remove this neck, recut the angle of the heel to get the action where we want it, and then glue it back in. So we're going to go ahead and get started on that. All right, so we're ready to start pulling this neck off. First thing we got to do is we got to separate this fretboard from the top, because the extension on this fretboard is glued to the top. Now this one should be fairly easy to get off because it's actually starting to come off on its own a little bit. Apparently this thing had not been stored in the best condition. And also this is, being a 43 Martin, I know this was put together with high glue. So high glue is a very strong glue, but it's also a completely reversible bond. So with the right amount of heat, we can completely remelt that glue, and this should come apart pretty easy. The bridge come off pretty easy, so I'm hoping that the fretboard and the neck will as well. So I have, just like I did with the bridge, I have a block of steel that I've heated on the hot plate to 250 degrees. It's been sitting on here for about 3 or 4 minutes. We're going to go ahead and pull this off and start trying to work this fretboard loose. Yeah, it's getting hot. We'll just take our palette knife. It's already separated a little bit right here, so we'll start right here and just kind of work it underneath there. We may have to heat it a couple times to get all the way down. Yeah, this is going fairly easy, as I thought it would. We'll have to stop and heat it right here a little closer to the joint. And when it starts getting hard, you don't want to force it because you'll end up pulling up some spruce from the top, or worse yet, splitting the top and ending up with your tool down inside the guitar. So we get a little bit more resistance. We're going to stop. We're going to reheat it, move our block back to right here. Alrighty. So if we can get this the rest of the way. Oh yeah, it's going fairly easy. I said this one should do fairly easy. It's done with high glue, and also this thing is halfway coming off anyway, so this one should be fairly straightforward. What do you think about? let's see if we got that pretty much. There we go. Yeah, let's see, we're good there. All right. Okay, that'll do it. Thank you, Thunderbolt. All right, so we got our fretboard separated. Now it's time to actually pull this neck out. So when we do that, we have to get heat down into the joint. Now this is a dovetail joint where this is attached. So we'll have to get heat down inside that dovetail to melt the glue, and it should slide straight up. Now to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to pull this fret out, the 15th fret, not the one at the joint, but the next one. And we're going to drill a hole underneath this slot where we can get heat down in there. We're going to use what we call a heat stick to get heat down into there to melt that glue. Now Martin made these where that joint, that dovetail joint, has a bit of a gap at the back of it. And that gap should be pretty much right over this fret. It may be a little bit one way or the other, but it's pretty much right over this fret. So we pull this fret out, we drill a hole, get our heat down in there, then the fret will hide our hole and won't be any sign that this neck has been removed. So first thing we have to do, we're going to pull this fret out. So we're going to take our, just like I would if I was refretting it, we're going to take our soldering gun, heat this fret to soften the wood and melt any glue and old just sweat and gunk that might be holding this fret in here. And we're just going to go back and forth with our soldering gun a couple of times to heat this fret. Just take our fret pullers, start at one end, slowly work our way to the other. There we go. Now normally I would save this fret to put it back in later, but we're going to also have to refret this guitar, so I'll just toss this. Now we're going to drill our hole just slightly off-centered, we don't hit our truss rod. This has a fixed truss rod, being it's a 43. They don't have an adjustable truss rod. Adjustables would come all the way up to the sound hole, just about. This should stop before the end of the dovetail, but sometimes they go a little bit further than others, and you know, I don't want to make sure we don't hit that. So we're going to go slightly offset so we don't hit that. We're going to start with a small bit here. Just to get it started. Kind of angle it to match the shape of that dovetail a little bit. And no matter how many times you do this, always makes you nervous drilling a hole in a $20-some-thousand guitar. Really feel the gap. It must be right on the edge of it. It's okay. We'll take our longer bit. I'm going to tape this off to make sure there's no possibility of drilling all the way through the back of the guitar, because that would be a bad day. There we go, I felt it go in. Go in the go. I could feel that hit that air gap behind the dovetail as it went in. It was actually a little bit behind the fret. So we're good there. And now we got to put this thing in our neck reset jig and apply some heat to it. Okay, so we've got our guitar set up in our jig here. And basically all this does is it supports the body of the guitar while also pushing upwards on the heel to break it loose. And we have this right here is our heat stick just a soldering iron with a big long copper rod on the end of it. Will get heat down into the joint. Now, there's a couple of different methods of getting the heat down in there. The traditional method is to use steam. Use a needle hooked up to something to generate steam. So we'll use a coffee maker or just a pot of boiling water or something. And we'll get steam down in there. That usually works okay with Martins, but I've found a lot of times with guitars that are a little bit harder, like ones that have been improperly reset before. Gibsons can be a little bit harder. Guilds are a little bit harder. Your Japanese guitars like the old Red Label Yamahas are really hard. It doesn't work as well. And also you have the steam that's coming out, and it can damage the finish surrounding the area, especially if you're not careful. So I prefer to use the dry method with this heat stick. You also see what they call foam cutters, which is basically the same thing, just made. It's just not a soldering gun, basically the same thing. To get dry heat down in there, and I'll put some drops of water in there because moisture does help that glue to melt a little bit and help to transfer heat. But I like the dry method better because it does less damage to the surrounding wood, and it seems to do better on ones that are a little bit harder, especially if you don't quite hit that air gap. This will radiate heat into it even if you don't hit that gap quite exactly right. It just does take a little bit of time, so we're just going to let this sit for a little while, be patient with it, and then we'll start. There's a screw on the bottom here which will push up on the heel. I'll show you that in just a second. And that will push upwards, and we'll start tightening that down until we can break that joint loose, and then this should just kind of wiggle loose and come off. Now I'll show you a little closer what we've got going on here. In the last video I done on a reset, a couple people asked exactly how this jig works. So you can see from underneath here, I have this metal bar right here with a screw. That screw is pushing up against the bottom of the heel. We have a little piece of rosewood here, so we're not directly contacting the heel, so that screw doesn't dig into the wood of the heel. And we'll tighten this screw down right here when we're ready, and we'll push upwards on the heel and pushing the body down, and it should break free. All right, it's been sitting here for a few minutes. I believe we're ready to start trying to work this neck off. I've been injecting a little bit of water into this hole periodically to also moisten the glue, because that does help it to melt and transfer heat. And I'm actually seeing water drip out the bottom. That means we've theoretically have broken the glue joint for the most part, so it should be ready to start coming loose. And doesn't necessarily mean it, but it's a good sign. So we want to go ahead and apply some pressure, pull our heat stick out, and apply a little pressure. See if we can get this thing to start moving. Careful as we go, watching for anything moving. There it goes. That was easy. I'm gonna take a lot more pressure than that. That one did pretty good. All right. Yeah, can't come out no cleaner than that. All right, you can see here, that come off good and clean. Didn't take any wood or finish with it. You can see our hole that we drilled. Now we just got to clean some of this old glue off and start reshaping this, recutting this angle of this heel. All right, so we got our neck took off and cleaned off some of the glue while it was still kind of warm as we get off. But now we got to start recutting our angles so we can get this neck back on here. This is the whole point of the neck, is that while I had to take the neck off to change that angle. So what we're going to do is kind of like we fitted the bridge to the top. We have our inletting die, or just grease mixed with marking chalk basically. And we're going to put that on the sides of the guitar where the neck attaches. So just this little bit right here, you see a shadow where the neck was. We'll just put some inletting die right here. We'll press the neck down in here, see where it's hitting, and we'll slowly take off little by little, making a point to take off more at the bottom and not taking anything off the top, changing our angle. Notice Other ways of doing that, some people like to use sandpaper in that gap and just kind of run it back and forth. Or some people will start with chisels and then do that to get a fine finish. I'm pretty good with chisels. I've used them for a long time. I did gunsmithing before I was moved here, so I can do much faster work with this and do precise enough I don't have to go back to sandpaper. So we're just going to do this all with chisels. So we're just going to take this, take a paintbrush and our inletting guide, just mark that out real quick. Press it in place and see where we got contact. Got a tight fit right now. We're doing looser as we take the zero off. We have pretty even contact all the way across because they did a good job fitting this. But, so we'll just take off anywhere we see red. And just something you just got to have a feel for. Just take off more at this heel, the less as we go up. Pretty much taking nothing off right up here at the fretboard. Like I mentioned in the previous video with doing the bridge, chisels must be sharp, very, very sharp. Take off very little as we get up toward the top, and pretty much nothing up in here. Side do the same thing. We'll just repeat this process until I get the angle that I want. What I'm looking for is I lay a straight edge across the fretboard. I want this straight edge to just barely come up over the top of the bridge. So just a little bit of a gap there. Right now it's hitting about smack in the middle of the bridge. So we got to raise this, change this angle where this just barely comes up over the top of it. That'll give us the right side. We can get a good action without having the saddle trimmed down too low. This is an all-day process, so we'll kind of skip ahead a little bit because this is the bulk of the work of doing the neck reset. Is this right here. All right, so we got our neck fitted, our angle's where it needs to be. If I lay my, it's not hard to see on the camera, but if I lay my straight edge on here, hold the neck in place, I see just a little bit of a gap. Just barely kind of passes over the top of the bridge, probably about an 1/8, 1/16 to maybe an 1/8 of an inch gap. There, that should give us plenty of saddle height with good low action. So our angle's good, but we still can't glue this down yet because now that I've took so much material off this heel, see that moves. This is not a tight fit anymore. This has to be tight. A lot of people don't realize that it's not really the strength of the glue that holds the neck in place. It's really that mechanical lock of that dovetail joint. Glue is just kind of a little bit extra insurance and keep it from coming out when there's no strings on it. You could actually, properly fitted dovetail, you could actually string it up with no glue in it and it will stay put. So what we got to do now is got to put some shims in here to tighten that back up. So I got some maple shim stock. It's just like paper, thin pieces of maple, and we'll trim that and shave it down until we get just the right thickness. I don't want this to go down tight. I have to kind of like tap it with a hammer to get it to seat, but I can still pull it in and out, and then it'll be ready to go. So we'll do that right now. All right, so we have our shims here. It's got two little paper thin pieces of maple here that I've cut out. These are actually a little bit too thick. The neck doesn't quite seat all the way down with these in place. And so I'm going to have to shave these down a little bit. And the way I'm going to do that is use the same stuff I used before. Use that inletting dye, and I'm just going to paint it on the dovetail itself. I'm going to press the neck down in there, see where it's touching, and then we'll come over here and have just a block of wood with some 120 grit sandpaper sitting on it, and we can just shade that down. We'll keep doing that until we get a good fit. And I want a tight fit. We'll have to, maybe give it a gentle tap with a rubber hammer to seat it all the way down, but I still can get it in and out. Because that's critical that this is a tight fit. This mechanical joint of this dovetail shape is what holds the neck in place, not the glue. Glue just a little added insurance and keeps it from vibrating loose or coming out when you take the strings off. So it's really this shape that holds it in place. This has to be tight. It has to be a perfect fit. So you got kind of pretty even contact all the way around. So we'll just take this over here to the sanding block and sand this off, and just keep repeating that until we have a good tight fit. And I'm putting more pressure down with my fingers on the spots where I see dye, so I can take more off of those thin areas. And usually it'll end up with them kind of slightly tapered, so that it tightens up as it goes down. Alright, so we've got our fit good. Just a little bit of a tap to get the seat all the way down, but we are seated. We still have our, double check our neck angle here. We're still coming up just over the top of it, like we should. We got our shims fit perfect. Just take our shims. You can see here, they're, you can about see through them because we got a little dye on there. Take a rag with some alcohol and degrease them, because that inland dye does have some oil in it, and it will impede the glue from sticking. So we're going to clean all that off. And don't want to take off any more material. They fit loose. A little denatured alcohol. Be careful. They'll still be stained red, but we'll get that grease off of them. Also, make sure to clean that off of our dovetail here. So we do not want any grease, because like I said, that is really deep. Still have a little bit of a red stain to it, but it's not. As long as we get that oil off of there, it should work. It should be this way. All right, so we're ready to glue this down. So I'm gonna get the glue pot out, get it cooking, and we'll come back and we'll go ahead and glue this thing down. All right, we're ready to glue this back down, and we're gonna get everything prepped, get all my clamps laid. I can get to them quickly because we're going to be doing this with hot hide glue as was done originally. And I love hot hide glue, but the only one downside to it is it sets very quickly. So you got to move fast as you're doing this. I was telling a little bit about glue. I used to use liquid hide glue for this a lot. And I still think it's a good strong glue, but it has some downsides, and I've quit using it. Liquid hide glue is basically the same thing as your hot hide glue, but it's instead of heating it to turn it into a liquid, it's dissolved in an acid. It works very well, but it has two big downsides why I quit using it. One is that it has a very long time before it's fully cured. It says 24 hours on the bottle, but it's not. It really takes about a week for something like a bridge or something. And that becomes a problem with me because I have so many guitars I'm working on that I can't have, half a dozen guitars that I have to sit there for a week with clamps on them, and I can't put them in the case. So that becomes a problem. The other one, really the big problem, is it does degrade in the bottle, and they don't put an expiration date on the bottle anymore. So you just basically have to use it till it fails, and I can't have that when I'm doing this for a living. It hurts my reputation when something fails and I have to do it again, and it takes time away from working on things that I actually get paid for, because I have to fix it without getting paid again. So I've pretty much only used the real hot hide glue these days. But liquid hide glue works just fine. If you're doing this as a hobby, it's just as strong as guitars that I've done many years ago. Done bridges, neck resets. I've built banjos that have done with liquid hide glue, and they've held up just fine. But for me, it just doesn't work anymore. So we're doing this the old-fashioned way with hot hide glue, and we're going to heat this up a little bit with our heat gun just to slow our set time down a little bit, because this stuff starts to set immediately. And then we'll move very quickly. I won't be talking much while I'm doing it, because I have to move very quickly with this. And get this all clamped down, ready to go. And we're just going to heat the parts. We'll heat the joint itself a little bit, and the neck. Because hide glue cures as it cools, and heating this up just a little bit will help to slow that setting time down a little bit. Just a few more minutes of working time. Do a little bit more with the neck than we do with the body, because I don't want to mess this up. Be very careful with the heat gun. You can really screw the finish up. Get it too hot. Things can start to singe. Bit. And the dovetail itself. This is so our shims will have something to stick to. Shims in there. And we're just going to flood this with glue. Excess, we'll do white more as we go. And there we go. So we're down. Glued in place good. Seated. Bottom good. Alright. That was just a little bit tighter. We're good. All right, now wipe off some of this excess that oozed out down here. And we're gonna let this set a little bit, just like I did on the neck. Let this congeal a little bit, and we'll peel this tape off now, take the bulk of it off. We're gonna, there's a little bit that kind of drip down the side here. I'm gonna bring it down. Just take some hot water. Wipes right off. Alright, so we'll let this sit for about 15 minutes. Alright, so got it clamped on there, got it cleaned up. I didn't do video of me cleaning it up because I had a customer call while I was in the middle of it, so the video kind of messed up. But it's, you know, I just wiped it off with the hot water and a rag. And see, I have a nice tight fit. No gaps. Got a little bit of glue ooze out right here, but we're gonna refret this guitar, so we'll sand this whole fretboard anyways. That's not a big deal. And I believe that'd do it for this video. Make sure you like, subscribe, whatever, so you don't miss whatever I do next. Next part, I'll be refretting this guitar. Do a full refret on this guitar. We have a crack right here to repair. We install a new set of tuners, and then it'll probably be 2 more videos. We'll also do final setup, cut our saddle slot, and bring these holes out. So, like I said, make sure you don't miss that. I'm David, Carolina Luthier. See you around.